Hey, welcome back. It's good to have you here. I was thinking the other day about something my grandfather told me back in Dhaka when I was a boy. He said the most powerful weapon a person can have isn't strength, but illusion. The ability to make someone believe something that isn't true. I didn't understand it then. But years later, digging into the archives of World War II, I found a story that proved him right in the most extraordinary way. A story where the illusionists were the heroes, and their canvas was the battlefield. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi, and this is Flashpoints, the wars that shaped us. Today, we're not talking about generals or infantry charges. We're talking about artists, designers, radio engineers, and sound technicians. We're talking about the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, a unit so secret, its existence was classified for nearly 50 years after the war. The soldiers called themselves, simply, the Ghost Army. Their mission was absurd on its face, to deceive the Nazi war machine. Not with better spies or broken codes, but with stagecraft. To fight a war of perception, where a convincing bluff could save thousands of lives. Picture this. It's the spring of 1944, and Allied forces are pushing across Europe. But here, moving under cover of darkness, is a different kind of unit. Their convoy doesn't carry heavy artillery. It carries inflatable tanks, rubized canvas shells pumped full of air that from a few hundred yards away look exactly like a 40-ton Sherman. They have trucks with giant speakers that can project the precise recorded roar of a tank column on the move, the clatter of treads, the shouts of engineers. They have radio operators who flawlessly impersonate entire battalions, sending fake messages in a broken code they know the Germans will crack. Their weapons were brushes, plywood, sound effects, and sheer, audacious creativity. This was the brainchild of a few Allied planners who understood that in modern warfare, intelligence is everything. If you could make the enemy look the wrong way, you could win a battle without firing a shot. So they recruited from art schools and advertising agencies, men who knew how to make things look real. From radio stations and recording studios, men who knew how to make things sound real. Imagine being one of these soldiers. You're a painter from Brooklyn or a set designer from Chicago. You get drafted, and instead of basic infantry training, you're handed a blowtorch and told to sculpt a convincing field gun out of sewer pipe and old crates. Your life depends on the quality of your prop, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. Their first major test came just after D-Day. As the real U.S. Third Army under General Patton prepared for a brutal breakout, the Ghost Army was sent to simulate a massive force elsewhere. They created a literal mirage. For over a week, they pretended to be the 6th Armored Division, a force of 15,000 men, with nothing but 1,100 troops, their inflatables, and their sound trucks. They'd inflate a whole tank park at dusk, let German reconnaissance planes see it, then deflate it all before dawn and move, making it seem like a massive army was on the march. They'd set up fake command posts, with officers pretending to be generals, walking around in the open. They'd send fake radio traffic about supply shortages and troop movements. And it worked. German forces were pinned down, waiting for an attack from the Ghost Army that would never come, while the real Third Army smashed through a weakened line hundreds of miles away. But the illusion was terrifyingly fragile. There's a story about 2 Ghost Army soldiers, both artists, who were sketching near one of their inflatable tank positions. A French farmer walked up, looked at the tank, looked at their sketch pads, and said, "That is a very good tank." And then he just walked away. They were sure he was a spy, that the jig was up, but the deception held. The unit lived in a constant state of low-grade panic, knowing that a single curious enemy patrol stumbling into their camp would reveal the whole charade. They had very few real weapons. If discovered, they'd be wiped out. Perhaps their finest hour was during the Battle of the Bulge. In the desperate, frozen winter of 1944, after Hitler's last great offensive had broken through Allied lines, every real soldier was needed at the front. So who was sent to hold a critical 70-mile stretch of the front along the Rhine River? The Ghost Army. Just 1,100 men against potentially 2 hardened German divisions. For 8 agonizing days, they used every trick. They multiplied their footprint, making it look like units were arriving and departing constantly. They changed unit patches in the open. They ran phony traffic nets and played the sounds of bridge building at night. They made the Germans believe they were facing an overwhelming force, when in reality, It was a thin line of artists and engineers, their hearts pounding, hoping their theater would hold. And it did. They held that line until real reinforcements arrived. Listening to these stories, from my apartment here in New York, surrounded by the legacy of so much innovation, it hits me differently. As an engineer and an entrepreneur, I'm trained to solve problems with logic, with concrete systems. But the Ghost Army solved one of the most lethal problems of the 20th century with creativity and psychology. They understood that data is just noise until a human mind interprets it. They weaponized that interpretation. They weren't just building props. They were building a narrative, and they sold it to the most skeptical audience imaginable. It makes me wonder about the battles we fight today, not with tanks, but with information. We live in a world saturated with our own kind of illusions, deep fakes, algorithmic echo chambers, curated realities. The Ghost Army's legacy is a double-edged sword. It's a testament to brilliant, life-saving cunning. But it's also a stark lesson in how vulnerable we are to a well-crafted story. They proved that perception, once successfully manipulated, becomes its own devastating reality. The difference, of course, is intent. Their art was in the service of liberation, to save lives and end a tyranny. They used illusion to reveal a greater truth, that the war could be won. After the war, the men of the Ghost Army went home. They couldn't put their real service on their resumes. They couldn't tell their families. They stayed quiet for decades, bound by secrecy orders, their strange war trophies, bits of painted canvas, sound records, stored in attics. It wasn't until the mid-1990s that their story was declassified and they could finally receive recognition. What stays with me is that interview with one of the veterans, an artist. He said, "We were young. We thought we were going to use our creativity for our careers, for our lives. Instead, we used it for our country." There's a profound humility in that. So the next time you hear about a decisive battle, about a general's brilliant maneuver, remember that sometimes history is shaped not just by the force that strikes, but by the shadow that convinces you to look away. The Ghost Army reminds us that in the fog of war, and perhaps in the fog of life, what we believe to be real is the most powerful terrain of all. If you found this story of hidden history as fascinating as I did, I'd be so grateful if you'd share this episode with someone. Tell them about the artists who fought a war with rubber tanks. And for more stories that explore the unexpected turning points of our past, make sure you're following Flashpoints wherever you get your podcasts. This has been Flashpoints, The Wars That Shaped Us, a production of Light Knot Studios. You can find more of our work and the stories behind the stories at lightknotstudios.com. Thank you for listening. Until next time, take care.